Okay, let's dive into one of the most compelling and, honestly, most debated symbols in the entire Bible, the bride of Christ. In the final book, an epic wedding is all set to happen, but a huge question has captivated people for centuries. Who is she?
The text introduces us to this figure called the bride, the wife of the Lamb, and it's clear she's incredibly important. But figuring out her actual identity, well, that is not so simple, and it's led to some really different and fascinating interpretations.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to frame it like a debate, looking at two major interpretations, a very exclusive view and a much more inclusive one. We'll break down their arguments, where they clash, and what it all really means. All right, so to even get started, we have to look at how the Bible itself describes this bride. And what's wild is she isn't presented as a person at all, but as something, well, something way bigger, a magnificent city, the New Jerusalem, coming down from heaven. And this right here, this is the launchpad for everything. The text flat out says the bride is the holy city, New Jerusalem. Now, both arguments we're about to explore totally agree on this point. Where they split, though, is on who exactly gets to be the city, to be the bride. So let's jump into the first major argument. This viewpoint says that the text gives us a very specific, very literal number for who this bride is. We're not talking about a general symbol here, we're talking about a specific head count. You see the logic here, right? It follows a pretty clear step-by-step path. If the bride is the city, and the city is defined by the 12 tribes of Israel, then this special, sealed group of 144,000 taken from those exact same tribes, well, they must be the bride. It's a very direct A to B to C interpretation. And the text doesn't just give us a number. It paints this incredibly vivid picture of who these people are. They're called the first fruits, redeemed from the earth. They're undefiled, blameless, and they follow the Lamb absolutely everywhere. This unique description is used to really reinforce their special, exclusive status. So this is the crucial takeaway for this argument. It creates a clear line in the sand. You have the bride, the 144,000, and then you have the wedding guests. Everyone else who is saved gets to be there, they're honored and celebrated, but they just don't hold that one-of-a-kind position as the wife of the Lamb. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. Now let's flip it over and see how the counter-argument builds its case. This perspective sees the bride not as a small, exclusive group from the end times, but as a much, much larger body of believers stretching all the way back through history. You see the difference? Instead of focusing on a single, final generation group, this interpretation opens the doors wide. It says the bride is made up of every single believer from every era who made the ultimate sacrifice for their faith. It's a collective that spans thousands of years. And proponents of this view will point to scriptures just like this one from Hebrews. It talks about all these faithful people from the past and then says, they're all made perfect together with us. The idea is that this suggests a collective destiny, which kind of pushes back against the idea of a special, separate status for just a few. So this argument reinterprets those key symbols we talked about. The 12 tribes, that's a symbol for the whole church. New Jerusalem, it's the home for all martyrs. And they'll also bring in the Apostle Paul, who called the church way back in his own time a virgin to be betrothed to Christ. And you got to ask, if believers were already part of this betrothal back then, how could the final bride be limited to some future group of 144,000? Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. This is where the two sides really clash. Because the disagreement isn't just about who's in and who's out. It's about the very meaning of the words and symbols the Bible uses. I mean, just look at this term, first fruits. This one word is a major battleground. Does first mean they're the only and most important part of the harvest? Or does it just mean they're the beginning of a much larger harvest that includes everyone else? The whole argument can pivot on how you read that one word. And it's the exact same story with the wedding invitation itself. In the exclusive view, it's black and white. You're either the bride or you're a guest. Simple. But in the inclusive view, being called to the wedding supper is the invitation to be part of the bride. How you interpret that invitation totally changes who's standing up at the altar. So you might be thinking, okay, this is an interesting Bible puzzle, but why does it really matter? Well, beyond just interpretation, these two views have very different implications for how we understand things like faith, sacrifice, and, divine reward. It really all boils down to this one massive question. Let's dig into what each of these ideas implies for believers, no matter when they lived. So the exclusive view, in essence, creates a kind of spiritual VIP section, a special, elite status for those who happen to be alive at the very end. The best wine is saved for last, so to speak. The inclusive view, though, champions equality. It says a martyr sacrifice in the first century is worth just as much as a martyr sacrifice in the last, and they all deserve a shared equal reward. At the end of the day, where does this leave us? Well, to be honest, it leaves us with a pretty profound mystery. Both sides build a strong case, and both come from a careful, sincere reading of the scriptures, leading to two very different but logical conclusions.
So let's just do a quick side-by-side recap. You have one viewpoint that really hangs its hat on a literal, numeric reading of Revelation, and you have another that takes a more symbolic route, pulling in writings from other parts of the New Testament to build a broader case.
And that, right there, is the question at the very heart of this ancient debate. It really makes you think about the nature of faith itself. Is the goal to achieve some kind of elite status? Or is the act of faithful sacrifice, no matter the reward, no matter the era, the ultimate expression of devotion? That's a question worth pondering.